We'll call the Shakopee City Council meeting for December 17th, 2024 to order. If the clerk could please take the roll.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Delaney.
Here.
Councilmember Whiting. Here. Councilmember Contreras.
Here.
Councilmember Lara.
Here.
Mayor Lehman.
Here. Item number 3, if you join us in Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda from council or staff?
Nothing from staff, sir.
Council? Councilor Contreras.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I can second
Mr. Whiting. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5, consent business. Any changes to the consent agenda?
Not from staff, sir.
Mr. Delaney?
I'd like to pull 5A.
Mr. Lara?
I'd like to pull 5E.
E?
Yep.
Anything else from council? Mr. Whiting?
Make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as modified.
Is there a second? And before voting, we'll have Mr. Reynolds, our administrator, read the consent items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. These are the consent items for Tuesday, December 17th of 2024. 5B is the purchase of 4 utility police interceptors for the police department, a purchase of a plow truck for the street department, and a purchase of a 2025 Silverado pickup truck for the fire department. 5C sets a public hearing date for the street reconstruction plan. 5D are the 2024 budget amendments. 5F are 2024 miscellaneous gifts and donations. 5G approves a contract for the 2025 ash tree removal project. 5H approves taxi cab business license renewals for 2025. 5A is the Mark Gromish Field 1 and 2 scoreboard maintenance agreement with Shakopee Youth Football Association. 5J approves the City Council meeting minutes. 5K is the preliminary plat of Palomino Trail. 5L is the agreement with the MMPA and Shakopee Public Utilities. 5M is surplus equipment. 5N approves tobacco license renewals for 2025. 5O approves pawnbroker business license renewals for 2025. 5P is a Scott County Public Health Statewide Health Improvement Partnership Grant application. 5Q is Resolution 2024 TAC 160 with Scott County CDA for homeowner rehabilitation program using the LAHA funding stream.
5E is over here.
And 5R approves the TH business license renewals for 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I've got 2 different 5Es, but I think the one 5E is really 5J, and that is the scoreboard agreement.
It's just a second half. It's 5.
Right, but
Yeah.
it says 5E, and this is 5E over here. So,
Mr. Mayor, that's an attachment showing the previous action accepting the scoreboards. So it was just referencing a previous meeting where you had accepted that.
Got it.
Yep.
All right, let's see here. Give me a second here. So we've read the consent agenda and the modified consent agenda. We do have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, I say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Get through my junk here. All right, that takes us to item number 6, public comment. If you're here for an item that is not on the council's agenda tonight, would like to speak to the city council, now would be the time to come up to the table here, and would love to hear your comments. So if you're here for an item not on the agenda, now would be the time to come forward and speak to the council? I'm seeing none. Item number 7, business removed from consent. First item removed was 5A. That was removed by Mr. Delaney. Mr. Delaney.
I have a couple of comments. I mean, I'm not in favor of raising taxes on our residents this year. I know last year we pursued a tax break, and we're now pursuing a tax increase. In addition, we're showing a funding gap and increasing our capital improvement levy by $500K. And my one question is, were we not aware of this deficiency last year while pursuing a tax break? This year's tax increase and last year's tax break clearly indicate that we need to look for a sustainable way to maintain a reasonable, stable property tax. So instead of rehashing my previous argument, I propose that we have a workshop early next year to develop a long-term viable strategy for achieving and maintaining a reasonable, stable property tax. I mean, just having the lowest tax rate compared to surrounding cities is not, it's a fantastic goal, but it's not a strategy. So just thank you for my viewpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Mr. Whiting?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned to yourself the lowest tax rate, and then with development, this will have one of the lowest impacts on any community. We know about the bond. We've talked about it for years. We knew about the road bubble. It's not anything that hasn't been transparent. So with that, I'd make a motion to adopt Resolution R 2024 TAC 151, approving the property tax levy collectible in 2025 and 2025 annual budget.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Discussion? I would say staff has done a great job minimizing the impacts of council actions. I think council actions, we could have had a lower tax impact. Them decisions were made. I think it is critical that strengthening our households and our businesses also strengthens the consumers, which our businesses rely on, and I think that's pretty critical, especially right now, at least until and if inflation ever goes down. My 10 cents. Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion passes 3-2. Just a housekeeping thing here. I have a 5S that's not on the agenda. Did you hit on that, Mr. Reynolds, under the consent agenda?
What's the doggy park?
Yeah, it's not listed on our agenda, but it's in our packet. 5S is a purchase of equipment for a Marystown dog park.
No, sir, I did not.
No, but on my list it is. It's on.
Oh, yeah, I have it.
Mine does have it. So.
Where's that be?
I had the item. It doesn't look like it's on the
Mine is not on this one.
agenda.
For some reason, I got the white sheets and they all got the yellow sheets.
Oh, I got both. I got both.
The yellow sheet is not correct. The white sheet
So
is.
the what? Yeah.
So-
But I never got a yellow sheet.
Just don't know that we read that one
Yeah.
in the
It would
consent.
still be,
Yeah.
it would still be part of the consent agenda and therefore would have been passed.
Yep.
As we've talked about before, we're one of the only communities in the metro area that actually reads consent into agenda.
Yep.
It has no real effect other than telling people what we're doing.
Okay. All right. The other item removed from the consent agenda was 5E, and that was removed by Mr. Lara.
Yeah.
Mr. Lara?
So last meeting we discussed, we were talking about pawn shops, and I was just wondering if is it in the fee schedule here that that our pawn shop fees are incorporated, or is that on a separate? Is that separate?
I thought I saw him in here.
Well, my question is do we have, since they haven't been raised for ages, do we have any interest in increasing that?
Well, it looks like we did an across-the-board increase based on inflation of 3%, I believe it said.
Yeah, here it is on page 72.
And as always, if council sees a fee that they want to adjust, you certainly can.
So they have their license fee, they have their investigation fee. it's the $1.51 that hasn't been increased in a while. Is that one seeing a increase this year or not, since it's not redlined?
It's not scheduled to be increased, no, sir.
Is that one dictated by any other statute that we are aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. That does not mean that that's the case, though.
That might be something we want to have Chief come back. Can we bring that one back to
Yeah,
adjust the fee later?
we can amend that at any time. We can take a look at it, and then my recommendation is to pass this, and then let us take a look at the specific fee, and then we can tell you if that's the case, and if not, we can bring that and have a bigger discussion on it.
Mr. Lara?
All right, so in that case, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 02024-021, establishing fees for 2025, with us coming back to looking at that pawn shop fee in a later date.
Is there a second?
Met?
Discussion on the motion? Discussion? No. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 8A, ordinance amendment to Title 15, Chapter 151, Cannabis and Hemp Businesses. Is that Mr. Kursky?
Yes, sir.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is ordinance 2024-11, amendment to Title Chapter 151, Section 151.7K, Table of Uses, and 151.002, definitions related to cannabis and lower potency hemp edibles. Minnesota State Statute, Chapter 342, approved August 1st, 2023, established regulatory framework for adult use cannabis and lower potency hemp edibles. The law created the Office of Cannabis Management, who will oversee the implementation in the medical cannabis market and consumer hemp industry. So the highlights of Chapter 342 is effective January of 2025 for those 21 and older. There's a minimum of one retail license per 12,500 population, and these are the 13 business licenses that will be issued. Micro businesses, mezzo businesses, a cultivator, manufacturer, retailer with no on-site use or consumption allowed, a wholesaler, transporter, testing facility, event organizer, which is a temporary event lasting less than 4 days, delivery service, medical, cannabis combination businesses, lower potency hemp edible manufacturer, and a lower potency hemp edible retailer.
Mr. Whiting?
Can I stop you for a question?
Yes.
Jump on the event organizer. That is a consumption event, isn't it?
Mayor and Council, that's correct. That's where you would be consuming some kind of hemp product or cannabis product.
All right, thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Kursky. Testing facility, is that going to be the facilities that the state would operate to do their testing?
Mayor and Council, that could be if you were a manufacturer, you could contract with that state-approved facility that would test the product.
Okay, but nonetheless, the state's going to be involved in the testing side of things.
Mayor and Council, yes. I mean, all of these are licenses, so you have to get if you're going to be a tester, you have to get a license from the state. Similar, if you're a transporter of the product, you'd have to get a license. So it's a very heavy regulated industry. We all want to know what the delivery service part of it will be, so that'll be interesting.
Okay.
So cities can enact buffer distances, as we discussed, 1,000 feet and then 500 feet for parks. Allows businesses to operate from 8 to 2. Cities can prohibit retail sales 8 to 10 Monday through Saturday. That will be addressed in the administrative rules that will be adopted in January by the council. It allows initial registration and renewal fees and requires local government units compliance checks for retail registrations, 1 per calendar year. So the proposed ordinance here is there's no restriction on the number of retail locations. I think that was the direction staff was given at one of the council workshops. There's no buffer requirements, and the hours will be addressed again in the administrative procedures, which will be seen by council in January. So this is the table of uses that would be adopted tonight. So this amends our table in the zoning code. So you can see here all the different types of licenses would be regulated by these zones. So, for instance, a cannabis cultivator would be permitted in I-1 and I-2, delivery services in I-1 and I-2, manufacturers in I-1 and I-2, the meso businesses in I-1 and I-2. So the micro businesses are small businesses similar to a microbrewery, and those would be permitted in our B1, which is our major commercial district, B3, which is downtown, major rec and community commercial, industrial 1 and industrial 2. Cannabis retailers would be limited to B1, major rec and community commercial. Testing facilities would be in I-1, I-2, and also business park, because that's fits to that category. Transporters would be in I-1 and I-2, wholesalers I-1 and I-2, medical cannabis combination businesses in I-1 and I-2, low potency manufacturers in I-1 and I-2, and lower potency hemp edibles matches pretty much what we have today, which is B1, B3, neighborhood commercial, major rec, and community commercial. So as these licenses come forward, this will provide guidance to where they can be located.
Mr. Kursky, what's the difference between a micro business and a retailer?
So a micro business, you'll see that they all have little numbers next to them. So micro businesses is a place where you'd be making, for instance, a gummy, and you could actually make it on site and consume it on site. So it's like a microbrewery. So small quantities, where it's like a tasting kind of, where you have a tasting room.
Could be beverages or something, I suppose.
Okay, and how about the flower side of it?
Mayor, I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
The flower side?
But can they smoke it?
Can they smoke it? So that's something I'll have to rely on the city attorney. I don't believe smoking is allowed because it violates the Clean Air Ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that's correct. I can double check though with the attorney that in our office that work primarily on this, but I can double check that.
So you can purchase it in a micro business, but maybe not consume it.
So in a micro business, true, a micro business is really designed for, from what we can tell from the state, for edibles. So it could be bakery products, it could be gummies, it could be anything that you could probably eat. You would not be smoking it most likely in a micro business because it would violate the Clean Air Ordinance.
Okay, but where would you purchase it in a micro business?
Yes.
The flower, not the edible.
If you make the flower there.
Which you can't in that zoning.
Yeah, so the micro business is really designed to be very small. It was designed for small kind of retail operations that make something kind of in the back room on a very small scale and serve it, or you buy it and take it with you.
Okay.
Like a winery or.
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
They compared it in the state guiding to, the early microbreweries that we had.
All right.
So these are the, this keys back to the table. So every one of these categories has conditions. So on 61 is a kind of a good example. So that's a micro business. On-site consumption is accessory use to cannabis business licensed by the OCM as a micro business. Minimum 500-foot separation for residential uses is measured from the property line because they're actually making things there, and there's potential for odors. And if you look at the industrial, so cannabis cultivator, delivery, they have, again, the separation requirement because the state, there is some concern if you're manufacturing something, there's going to be the potential for odors. So they would have a 500-foot separation from residential uses. So the Planning Commission approved the inclusion. Their recommendation is to include the maximum buffers allowed by state law. So that was different than what council recommended. They were pretty strong. It passed 5-0 to include the 1,000 feet from schools and the 500-foot distance from daycares, residential treatment facilities, and amenities in a public park where minors frequent.
Can
if
you
remember,
let's back up a slide or two. One more. Okay. So the 500-foot separation, is that us doing that, or is that a state requirement?
That is us in the industrial area, similar to where we have other conditional type uses that are odorous or whatever. We have separation requirements.
Okay. Just want to make sure what is state and what is local.
Yep.
All right.
So this really pertained basically to the retail. That was the, and if you remember this map, these are the areas that those buffers would apply to. And so basically the ordinance you have before you tonight does not include the buffers, but their recommendation was to include the buffers.
Okay. Mr. Whiting?
I thought our council had a good discussion on buffers and some knowledge of some of these facilities in other areas of the country. And with all respect to the Planning Commission, I think we decided not to go with the buffers, and I think, to me, that would stand.
Mr. Lara?
I concur.
Anybody else? All right. So what's the wishes of council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Lara?
I will make a motion to adopt ordinance 02024-011, amending title, what is that? 15? Chapter 151, section 151.007, K, table of uses, and 151.002, definitions of the city code related to cannabis and lower potency hemp edible use classifications in commercial and industrial zoning districts.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Discussion on the motion? I would say that I suspect that as this progresses at the state level, there potentially could be some changes along the way that we may incorporate later on.
Right.
All right. Any other discussion, Mr. Whiting?
And I'll add, you know, as we go through this, we may change this. We may say, oh, we should have thought of that, or whatever it might be. This can come back. So
We're open to it, so yeah.
Any other discussion? Discussion, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes unanimously. 8B, comprehensive plan text amendment to figure 413. Mr. Kurski.
So this is the comprehensive plan text amendment for the mixed-use commercial center residential density. So the 2040 comprehensive plan includes future land use classifications and guide a broad pattern of land use. Figure 4.13 is the planned land use overview, which lists each land use classification and detail. The request tonight is to modify the mixed-use commercial center residential density from minimum of 30 to maximum of 60 dwelling units per acre to 6 to 60 dwelling units per acre. City Council can approve an amendment when it finds one or more of the criteria exists. The original comp plan and zoning ordinance are in error. Significant changes in community goals and policies have taken place. So we've received feedback on the sites you'll see in a second that the density is not feasible in our market, and the developers would like to look at townhomes and smaller groups projects. The majority of our new apartments are in the 26 to 28 dwelling units range, and basically you can't get the density in the 1 to 5 stories that is required in the plan. Significant changes in citywide or neighborhood development patterns have occurred, or the comprehensive plan requires another provision, which is basically to meet the Shakopee market realities. So these areas circled are where that current 30 to 60 is required. And basically we've gotten some proposed projects in some of these areas, in particular the site that's right next to the emblem. That's been vacant for as long as anyone on staff can remember. We've had several projects that have looked at doing kind of small-scale commercial and townhomes there. They cannot come anywhere near meeting that density. The other issue is that density has to be met in 5 stories, and I don't think that's probably feasible anywhere in the city. So this is the table. So mixed-use commercial center currently is 30 to 60 dwelling units an acre and 1 to 5 stories. Setback varies. It's 0.2 to 1.5 floor to area ratio. It's commercial and office of primary uses. Multifamily, parking, transit facilities, and gathering spaces are the allowed secondary uses. So this is the page that we'd be amending. So the mixed use commercial center right now, again, is 30 to 60, and we're recommending that go down 6 to 60. Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0.
Questions of staff? Mr. Whiting?
Could you put back the current zoning, the map there?
This is the land use map, not the zoning map.
Okay, so
Yep.
this is not, the circled areas are not the ones you're talking about?
The circled areas are where the current future land use shows that density would be required.
No, yeah, that mixed-use commercial is just so strange.
It is.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Kursky,
Yes, sir.
we also have mixed employment.
Yep.
And we show mixed employment in the same area that you're calling mixed commercial.
Mayor, so mixed-use center is a kind of salmon color. Employment is a lighter kind of pink color that if you look, for instance, in the West End, you'll be seeing a map in a minute. That is the mixed employment center where it's kind of that pinkish color. And then if you see Canterbury Park, that's our industrial area, so that's all that kind of pinkish color.
So if we're not going to be using up to 60, why don't we just change it to 6 to 30?
So, Mayor and Council, I think if technology may change units, we wanted to leave the upper number because I think if someone comes in down the road, we can figure out how to make 60 work. But we know right now the minimum they can make work is 6.
So
Mr. Delaney?
so what's the max they can work with at the present time?
He said 30.
So 30 is the max.
Okay, no, today it's 30 is the minimum, 60 is the maximum.
But you said 60 couldn't work.
Today.
So,
So one of the things that Shakopee can't support right now, and very few cities can, is steel or concrete construction. All of our projects are concrete, typically first floor, with a wood frame above that. Some cities, you know, they can support steel and concrete, and you can get a denser project. We just can't do that currently with the rents that Shakopee gets today. I think our maximum rent that I think we've seen is probably close to $3,000 a month, but most of our units are probably $1,500 to $2,000 a month, and for that number, you have to do wood construction. And there's no way to get to that density with wood construction.
Mr. Delaney?
Can we make that change now and just revisit it later when they do have technology that can maybe support that?
Mayor and Council, that's your choice. If you want to change it from 6 to 30, it's up to you.
I would support 6 to 30. Mr. Thompson?
Mr. Mayor, members of council,
Wrong way, yeah.
my concern on that is it was only noticed at the Planning Commission to change the 30 to 6, not to change the 60 to 30. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'd be a little concerned about making that change on the upper end without the Planning Commission and going through a public hearing on that,
So
because
we-
that was not noticed to the public as decreasing the maximum.
Yep.
It was so that.
So we could direct
direct
staff
staff
to
to-
do
right.
that. Okay. Thanks for the clarification, Mr. Whiting.
I have no idea why we'd want to do that. I mean, this is the mixed-use commercial. If you look at some of these spaces, this is potentially would be a great spot to add more than take away, to give them that option, which doesn't seem to be possible at this point. I understand that your concerns have always been with the higher densities. This is not changing the high end, it's changing the low end so that we can make some of these work to be a little more flexible in these strange areas where I'm not sure who would want to build an apartment, actually. But
Well, I'm more concerned with taking away available highway businesses and commercial along the highway corridor than I am. Well, that's one of my concerns amongst others.
So Mayor and Council, residential is a a secondary use. So you got to have commercial first. So for instance, that townhome project that I just talked about potentially on the site next to Emblem would have to have, you know, commercial along the main road, and the townhouses would be in the back. So you'd still have, we've seen some concept plans that would have a retail and some other commercial across the front. So that's the primary use kind of on the street.
A lot like Holiday and Roars on Windermere Way.
Yes.
Okay. What's the density of Roar per acre?
I think they're in under 30.
Exactly. So that's my point.
that can't be done, so, but you got the option.
So I would be in favor of sending this back to staff 6 to 30 in this classification.
Can I suggest we act on this, and then you can direct staff, if you have the votes, to make that happen?
So, well, if we have the votes, that we would have to vote this down. Is that what you're telling us to do?
No.
Let's put it out there first.
Mr. Thompson?
What Mr. House is saying, and I agree, I think if you're all in favor of reducing it from 30 to 6, if that's not the issue, you can adopt that one before you tonight. That's before you.
Correct.
And if you want to give staff direction to go back and have notice a public hearing for the Planning Commission to change the 60 to 30, you can do that, but I don't know that that would need to stop you from lowering it from 30 to 6.
Okay, Mr. Thompson, either I misheard you or you misspoke. You said if we wanted to lower it to 6 to 30, we could do that, but that's
No,
not.
he said 6 to 60, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay.
You can lower it from 30 to 6 because that's what was noticed.
We're not, okay, I see what you're saying. Yep.
That's what is
Yep,
before
got
you.
it. Yep, okay, very good.
So I think our goal would be if you could pass that, we'll go back to the Planning Commission, go through the notice process again, and then lower the 60 to 30 if that's what you all want. But this would at least allow some sites that are not getting developed today to have people start looking at potentially developing them.
Mr. Whiting?
That doesn't mean each plan doesn't come back to us for approval on some of these, but it does, I see where we have to change the low end of this. I don't see how the top end is going to affect us much. So I don't see the concern with the high end. So with that, I'd make a motion to approve the resolution as it is before us, our 2024 TAC 142, approving a comprehensive plan text amendment to figure 4.13 planned land use overview and associated pages in the 2040 comprehensive plan.
Mr. Delaney?
Ask a question. Do we need a supermajority or just a majority?
You're required to have a supermajority.
Let's get a
to
second.
pass this.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. We do have a motion and a second. Any more comments? Mr. Delaney, did you have a comment?
No, that's the only thing I have.
Comments?
And just so it's clear, you do need 4 affirmative votes to pass this.
Right. All right. Seeing no comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. I'm not sure I caught that. Who's the ayes and who's the nays? I'm the nay.
Yes.
Nay? Okay.
Pick your numbers.
3 to 2,
3 to 2,
so
yeah.
that doesn't pass?
It doesn't pass, but
Okay.
you're not lowering the,
Right.
So I will make a motion to approve resolution R 2024 TAC 142, approving a comprehensive plan amendment to figure 4.13 planned land use overview and associated pages in the 2040 comprehensive plan with the adjustment to change the dwelling units to the low end to 6.
That's what we just voted on.
And the 6 to 30
Well, we
currently.
can't do that because
yeah.
the planning commission has
Two-
to have notification.
there are two different actions. What was before you was to lower the density to 6. That has now failed. So that will not be coming back. If you want us to go and try to lower the upper density, we can do that if you have the votes to do that.
No.
We could, we could move to direct staff to do 6 to 30 and take that to the planning commission. Mr. Thompson, is that correct?
30 to 6, you mean?
No, 6 to 30.
No, you're 6 to, it's 30 now.
It's
So
30
you
now.
want to change
Right.
it from the low
But-
to 6
so,
to
so
the high
let me
to
ask
30.
you this. We can direct the planning commission to lower the upper density, but we can't direct them to lower the lower density.
The lower density, they just asked you to do.
Okay.
The lower
You
density
said
was
no.
going from
Okay.
30 to 6.
So if we direct them to lower the upper density to 30, then this can come back with the 6 to 30.
Yes.
You
Then we'd
just
be
voted
meeting
that
both
down.
of their recommendations at that point.
You just voted that down.
Right, but if it had the other in there, maybe it would pass.
Mr.
Okay.
Thompson?
Yeah, what I believe I'm hearing is there's 2 council members that don't want to lower to 6 unless the 60 is lowered to 30. So that would happen, since it's not a supermajority vote for, the item before you is, let me back up. The current density in this area is 30 to 60. And I think everybody knows this, but just so we're clear. The amendment that's before you tonight is to change the low end of 30 to 6, but not change the upper end. I don't think you can change the upper end to 30 tonight because that was not part of the public
Correct.
hearing. Okay. So Mr. Reynolds is right. The action you just took, there was not a supermajority to lower the low density from 30 to 6. So that did not pass.
Right.
But that does not preclude that from coming back to you at a later point in a proposal to, in addition to lowering the 30 to 6, also lowering the 60 to 30. That can come back before you again.
Okay.
If
All right. Do we want to direct staff to do that?
Yeah.
You want to make a motion to do that?
I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to change the lower end to 6 and the upper end to 30.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second it. All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just obviously staff can't, I think the direction is to bring that to the Planning Commission,
Well,
go through the process to propose
Let
that change.
me see if I can get this correct. Instead of saying you want to lower the lower end to 6, the motion should be to direct staff to lower the upper end from 60 to 30. And it should be just that, because then it's going to come back with the same recommendation from staff for the lower end?
No.
No. Okay. All right.
The motion to change the low end from 30 to 6 has failed because
Yep.
it was not a supermajority. My only point was, I think the motion is to direct staff to start the process. Not staff can't make the change
Right.
itself. It's just a technical
Okay.
change. Okay.
Okay.
So there's a comprehensive planning text amendment process. You could direct us to begin that process.
Right.
Is that the intent of your motion, Mr. Delaney?
That's the intent of the motion.
This does only require a majority vote because you're not amending the plan. You're just
Okay.
giving staff
All right.
direction to do something.
Okay. And is there a second? I'll second it. Discussion on the motion? Mr. Whiting?
The spaces we're talking about, to me, would demand a higher density.
Staff is telling you that they can't build higher densities past 30.
To have that scope, at least in that area, to have that ability to do it in case the opportunity came, I don't see the reason why we would want to. I mean, it's already there. It's 60 now. It hasn't hurt us. The issue before us is lowering it so that we can have developers take these properties that aren't currently
Yep.
viable for them. So what we're doing here
If we
is
have-
not developing properties.
Yep, and if we have something on the books of a density of 60 that's unachievable, and we're being told that 30 is the magic high point, then we should probably adopt that. So, any other discussion?
I'm thinking, sorry, I'm just trying to, I just feel we should just have done the way it was and then just added to revise it later, because I understand your point of the, 60, well, it's not getting us anywhere, but it's not bothering, it's just there. The issue was, trying to get it so we can get smaller things done. So I just feel like we're just, yeah.
Well, if we don't adopt the motion on the table, then nothing smaller than 30 will happen.
Right.
Okay? So if you, Mr. Lara?
Are we missing something?
Are you missing something?
Yeah, what are we missing?
I think the issue here is that we don't know what the future holds. You only have 4 years left on the current comprehensive plan, and 2028 you'll have a new one. And so what we're hearing today is on the sites that are on that map, it's difficult to do 30 to 60.
Right.
They can get 6 units without any problem. That's, in today's technology and in today's market, that's feasible. I think staff's point was in 4 years, whatever, when the plan comes back, you're going to reevaluate it. And if 60 is too high, we haven't seen any projects at 60. The only areas we've seen that's been that high has been in downtown. In the B3 zone, I think you can go up to probably close to 100 units an acre.
125, I think it is.
Yeah, 125. But that's the only area today that supports that kind of density. We're a suburban community, and you're seeing that kind of development. I think that because we require commercial in the areas as the primary use, it's hard to get up to that 60 today. That doesn't mean somewhere down the road we're not going to have first floor commercial with, you know, imagine Shakopee Flats in one of these areas in a parking lot like you see in other cities. It would have a grocery store or something on the first floor, but it would be a concrete building probably entirely. I mean, today the rents don't support that. Will that happen in 2 or 3 or 4 years? I can't tell you. I can't predict that. But I think that Councilmember Whiting, leaving it at 60, there's nobody coming forward, and it just will move the process forward. And we have projects, I think, that if we had it at 6, they'll come in at 6 to 10 or 6 to 8 sooner than later.
All right.
Okay. Mr. Lara?
If we lower it to 30, is there anything that we would be missing out on? Would that deter developers coming forward to those presenting those projects to us?
We won't know.
Well, I can't tell you that because I haven't seen any project like that. However, if you left it at 60, the benefit for you all is those projects come forward for rezoning, because none of them are zoned today for that kind of project, so it would have to be a mixed-use project. You could vote up or vote it down then. I mean, the 60 is kind of the sky, but you regulate that because, again, this is just comprehensive land changes. The reason we're going down to 6 is you'll still see the projects at 6 units an acre because none of them are zoned. The piece next to the emblem, I think, is zoned agricultural, so you're going to see the rezoning on that anyway. And then you can judge, does it meet, you know, the 6 units minimum? Does it have commercial? That's up to you and the Planning Commission to judge.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
All right. I'm not sure where that was at, so. Hands, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion fails. All right, thank you. Well, that takes us to 8C, monthly financial report.
Yep, hang on. I'll get this out of the way for you.
Questions on
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight I'll be covering the monthly financial report through November. Probably seen a slide similar like this before, but this slide shows the general fund through November. So at this point, we're 92% through the year. So we'd expect to be about 92% of our budget and revenues. The 2024 budget column has been adjusted for the budget amendments that were approved on July 2nd. Additional proposed budget amendments were on the consent agenda tonight. Those aren't reflected on those numbers, but I did put a column on the right-hand side that coincides with those budget amendments. These budget amendments explain many of the differences or the budget variances, and once these are entered into our system, should be brought within our budget allotment, which I'll walk through those budget amendments on the next slide. We did receive our second half property tax settlement first week of December, so tax revenues will be up to those budget expectations. There are 3 other areas, or 3 areas on the revenue side that have already exceeded the full year budget, which would be building permits, intergovernment revenue, which is a primary result of grants related to public safety, police, fire, and building inspections. And then the other area is miscellaneous, which would include our interest earnings on investments, which also exceeded the full year budget expectations. On the expenditure side, in total, we're at 86% of our full year budget. So just kind of wanted to walk through these budget amendments just because they do explain those budget variances on the previous slide. There's 5 identified budget amendments for each budget amendment. I also provided a reference to the council meeting that those projects were approved. Similar to the past couple of years, City Council approved budget amendments for significant budget variances. There's still several line items that have positive and negative variances, but this at least acknowledges those significant deviations on a formal level. The first one here is the Minnesota Historical Society grant. Council accepted the grant in the amount of $77,500 and then agreed to provide 100% match for archaeological investigation in the Shakopee Cultural Corridor, as well as apply for the National Register of Historical Places. This budget amendment recognizes the revenue and related expenses. Fire state aid, our fire state aid is passed through to the Fire Relief Association. That amount came in much higher than we had budgeted by about $102,000. That amendment increases the revenue as well as the pass-through expense side. The state building official grant, council accepted a grant from the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry and authorized the hiring of a building inspector apprentice. The amendment recognizes that $65,000 grant and then the related position expenses. The police unions, or police captain's union contract, which was approved, that recognizes that additional cost, which will be offset by savings in other line items within the police department. And then the buildings repair and maintenance proposed amendment. This doesn't increase the budget at all. It just, it'll take building maintenance expenses that we have in our facilities department and allocate them to the departments that have buildings that had expenses like the police station and fire station. With that, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Questions of staff? I have a question. If we look at number 9, inspections, building official grant, so we have the original budget at 815, you have the amendment of 65, and it makes the revised budget 880, showing that 65 in there. Does that mean that the following budget will be increased by that 65?
Correct. So the 2024, if I went back to this previous slide, for example, and the 2024 budget column would be increased by $65,000 on the expense side as well as the intergovernmental side with the grant revenue.
Okay, so but what used to cost 815 and then is revised in 24 to 880, will 25 reflect 880?
I can tell you we have included that in the 2025 budget. That was,
pardon me? Yes?
It's been included in the 2025 budget, the building inspector position.
Right, but
we also applied for the second phase of that grant, so we anticipate getting funding for that second year of that position.
So if you get the second phase of that, that will lower that one single budget item, and then the excess goes where?
Well, it's been budgeted that way in the 2025 budget. So we budgeted for both the grant and the position expenses.
Okay, and
at this time when we had set the 2024 budget, we did not know we'd have this grant.
Okay, and if the grant is not received in 25, then we do a budget amendment to fill that hole?
You said you had it both. I thought you said you had them both in there with the grant.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if we did not receive that grant, we'd probably bring something back acknowledging that we did not receive that if we aren't able to fill it some other way.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
8D, comprehensive plan map amendment to re-guide 2 properties from open space to mixed employment center.
The Wickman.
Mayor and Council, this is a comprehensive plan amendment to re-guide 2 properties from open space to mixed employment center, 1 property from open space to suburban residential, and 1 property from utilities to mixed employment center. So the City of Shakopee submitted an application for a comprehensive plan to re-guide the following: 26 acres, which is the northwest portion at 12460 Weckman Road, from open space to mixed employment center, approximately 20 acres from open space to mixed employment center, approximately 5 acres on Weckman Road from utilities to mixed employment center, and then approximately 54 acres on Buena Vista Drive from open space to suburban residential in the 2040 comp plan. The request to re-guide these properties is based on potential development opportunities, which are not consistent with the current plan. So these are the properties that we're speaking of. If I can get this to work. So this is the Xcel Energy Scott substation. This property next door, which is not affiliated with them, got guided as utilities, even though it's not utilities. And this parcel here, which is next to Buena Vista, was guided as open space, which it won't be eventually. Buena Vista will build out at some point into this area, and they actually own this already. And then this piece here was guided as open space when it's really part of the gravel pit. So to give you an idea how it would look, here's the current Buena Vista parcel, this parcel in the back here. This was considered open space, which is part of the gravel pit. And this piece here, you can see the fine blue lines, accidentally got guided as utilities when it's not. So the re-guiding would basically be this little piece down here, which is currently utilities, this piece and this piece, which are currently shown as open space. And this piece over here would now be suburban residential, which would match the guiding of the current Buena Vista. So the staff believes that several of the required criteria are met on this. Should the application be approved, staff anticipates future zoning requests consistent with the current proposal versus the approved 2040 comp plan. Planning Commission recommended the changes 5-0.
Questions for staff? Okay, so what is, no, go back to your colorful map, will you? Thanks. Okay, so what is allowed in mixed employment center?
Basically, that's our mayor and council, that's our business park. So right now in mixed employment would be the something like the Opus development that occurred out there. So it's not warehousing, it's places that either make things, develop things, and then Cherney's the best example I give people. So they have offices in the front, they have an R&D section, they have a manufacturing section, and then they have warehouse and distribution in the back. So warehouse and distribution would not, as strictly as a use, would not be allowed in the mixed employment center.
Okay, what else is allowed?
Anything that does not require exterior storage and is warehouse and distribution. So data centers, manufacturing,
Residential?
Residential can be in mixed employment as, I think, a tertiary use.
And what does that mean?
It could be a little corner or something of a parcel. I mean, we don't foresee that happening in mixed employment center. We would not support that. And no one has ever looked at, the changes we're making tonight are because the gravel pit is currently under contract and noted that this piece accidentally got included in this open space over here. The Buena Vista is listed as open space when their eventual plans, we've worked with Scott County, is they will expand that park into this area. So these are just corrections.
Okay. And the mixed employment by Strunk Road, where's the railroad? That's right on.
Got to be that green line, huh?
Where's the railroad on here?
Railroad, mayor and council is that gray line.
Well, that's kind of Strunk Road is actually kind of on the side of that, I think.
It's on the other side of the railway.
So that's kind of back in its own little down a hill in its own little area, and it's kind of an industrial use right now in that gravel pit. So
again, Mayor, the mixed employment center is the future 2040 land use. What we're trying to do tonight is to fix this piece of mixed employment that has this odd piece of open space that got dropped on it when they were making the map. Fixing this also, which is not supposed to be open space, fixing this piece down here, which is considered utilities, which is not a utility, and then allowing Buena Vista at some point to expand into this area because it's not going to be open space.
okay, so now let's go to your other map. The blue line map. There you go. Okay, so you got the white area that says area to be re-guided.
which is currently open space. So typically, and no one can explain how this happened, we don't carve up parcels. Land use is based on parcel basis, so somehow that, when they were coloring the map, that got colored open space, but it's part of the gravel pit. So just this piece of the gravel pit's being re-guided back to match the gravel pit.
And the gravel pit is currently guided as,
Next year.
Mixed Employment Center.
okay.
So we're proposing that the open space in the gravel pit be guided to match the rest of the gravel pit, which is Mixed Employment Center.
Okay. And then there you go.
Then there's this piece back here, which is also open space, which will be future industrial land. Right now, this piece is being farmed. This is just some trees. And that matches the rear, which in the future will be some sort of mixed employment area, some kind of industrial area. And then this piece here is, you can see there's homes already built into this section. Eventually, this will get sewer and water someday, or they'll figure out a way to do their septic system, and the park will expand. This is owned by the same property owner. And then this is a landscape business that's clearly not a utility and needs to be matched to the guiding around it.
Okay, so a couple of questions. If the township had a concern that we would be bypassing areas that are the townships, and we're supposed to like go contiguously, so how do we tackle that?
This is not this.
Mayor and Council, this has nothing to do with acquisition land. This is strictly a land use fix on the map. When a project, this is all outside of the city right now, but we do the land use by law in the township because we have an orderly annexation agreement. So we're trying to fix the map tonight, and then as these properties, they'll petition to annex into the city under the current orderly annexation agreement, if they so choose. But as we discussed at the township meeting, this land use is a ways off, but the people looking at this are looking long-term and going to have to invest a significant amount of money now. They want some assurances that in 5 years or whenever it is, that they can bring this property into the city with the proper land use.
Makes sense.
And we are allowed in the agreement to create islands because there's an existing island over on Marystown Road where the two property owners don't want to come into the city. It was the township's decision where they didn't want us to annex in this residential neighborhood that's up here. And I think council agreed. Oops.
I guess I'm not totally clear on this. Questions?
So all we're doing tonight is fixing the map.
But why are we fixing the map?
Because it's wrong.
Because somebody is looking at the gravel pit.
Well, we've met for a year with the Buena Vista people, and despite everything they want to do, they couldn't do it today because it's the wrong land use. And the guy that owns the landscape business has talked to us and said, I don't want to be a utility. I'd like to be mixed employment center because I'm not part of the utility. So we're trying to correct errors that are in the map.
Where would the trailer park put a future drain field?
But that's not,
It's not before us tonight.
that we don't know. It's not what this is about. This is not about us figuring out what the trailer park is going to be able to accomplish. It's to ensure that the property owner has its property properly guided, so if and when they figure that all out, they have the opportunity to do so. They may get sewer and water someday, we don't know. But the problem is that the map as it currently stands is not correct.
And it could change in 4 years.
Mayor, when there's an obvious, and council, when there's an obvious mistake on the map, we're supposed to fix it. So there's some obvious mistakes on this map. And to be honest, we never looked at this area that seriously because it's in Jackson Township. We have since annexed everything across the way, and people that are looking in this area, and particularly the trailer park, said, you got the wrong land use. The gravel pit owners said, the little piece in the back, how did that get open space? And we said, we're not sure, but we need to fix it.
Well, now I'm back, excuse me, to what staff said, that the trailer park said they can't expand because it's the wrong land use. It has to be suburban residential.
They
and
own it.
Yeah, they own it, but they can't expand because it's the wrong
So
land
let's
use.
fix it for them.
Well, if we do that, they can't expand because they don't have nowhere to put a drain field in.
And Mayor, that's up to them. This is strictly
That's good, so we don't pay $10 million.
dollars on the map. If they can come up with a way to fix their drainage, or we can find, the county had a plan that the owners weren't willing to do right now. It's owned by 2 people right now. At some point, hopefully they're going to sell, and a new owner will see the benefit of having sewer and water. But right now, that property that's currently open space is basically worthless because it's open space. So we're trying to fix some errors in the map.
What's the current land use designation on the trailer park?
Suburban residential.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Mr. Lara?
Make a motion to approve Resolution R2024-143, approving the comprehensive plan map amendment to re-guide 2 properties from open space to mixed employment center, 1 property from open space to suburban residential, and 1 property from utilities to mixed employment center.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
Just
Mr.
a quick
Whiting.
question on the property guided utilities. Does he pay taxes on
Yeah, he's paying taxes on his.
on the utility base? That's got to be some high taxes.
He's not, because land use does not set your taxes.
Okay, I
It's
was just wondering about that.
Yeah. But that's owned by somebody that said, long-term, being next to the highway, that's probably not a good land use, and he would like to sell his property. And being a utility, right now, he can't sell his property if he wanted to. Yeah.
Is there going to be any highway business along this highway in this area?
Mayor and council, we don't have a land use that's highway business. We have the commercial district, and that's that red color at the corner.
So the answer is no, then, in this area, just in the corner.
So Mayor and council, highway business, so B1, which is what we would have, some of the red area would be zone B1.
Those uses cross over in many
Yes.
cases too.
We're mixing zoning and land use here.
The first time I saw this was at the township meeting, and it wasn't very much long of a discussion. It'd be nice to have a broader workshop on this whole area, and I'd feel much more comfortable with that, actually. All right, well. Any other discussion?
I think it's pretty straightforward. I'll call the question.
All right, question's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, let's see here. Item number 9, liaison reports. And I don't recall which end we started at last time.
Started on my end.
All right, we'll start on this side.
Okay, 169 Coalition. We did do a presentation on the priorities. I just left the material at home. I'll get that to the next council meeting. It's my nice little handout packets. Went to attended Holiday Fest. Great event, great vendors, a lot of good displays. Great pirate, by the way. And also Igloo from our Shakopee Public Utilities. Got our Jackson Township meeting, and what else do we have? I think that might have been it. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Whiting?
Thank you. I have an MVTA meeting tomorrow. I did also attend the Holiday Fest. One thing I'm going to talk to the chamber about, I parked myself right down in Huber Park for the fireworks and must have watched 50, 60 people try and get into the bathrooms. So they were not open, and I think that probably had to be a chamber request on their thing. But that was kind of sad to see, but hopefully we can work on that. But other than that, that's all I have.
Very good. Councilor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. So Friday morning, I attended the SCAL general meeting. Lots of updates. So we had the CDA have their update. Their programs are coming along, around 700 vouchers throughout the programs. That was that. And then we had the SMSC talk about a little bit the organics. Hold on, it has a name. Where did I write it? Oh, sorry, the Dakota Prairie Composting, part of the SMSC's organic recycling facility, which has been accepting commercial yard and wood waste since August, and will be soon, part of the OR facility after its relocation. We had Ms. Lisa Brodsky over from Scott County Public Health talk about the opioid settlement update, provide an update on funds allocated to our community through the state's opioid settlement. She presented on how those funds were used in 2024 and how they will, considerations for the funding of 2025. That was that. People wore their holiday wear, what was it called? Holiday outfits or wear. It was a contest, holiday wear, yeah, that's what it was called. Some came in pretty cute. Those, they were not
I was not
all
one of them.
ugly sweaters, okay? They came out with socks and all, so pretty good.
Questions?
Yeah.
Did CDA bring up our little project that we're going to do here? The one that we approved, the home rehabilitation?
Oh, my God.
Better get some wins
You
before
got
we
me. That was a
celebrate.
lot. They have
I
a
bet
lot
they
of
did.
updates.
I'm sure they did.
Probably.
My
Don't
second
even-
question, how did they spend some of that opioid money?
You're asking really detailed questions, Jesse.
You can get back
I
to
did
me.
not take notes, but I can totally get back to you. I know Lisa Brodsky, and I can totally ask her.
Sounds good.
All right, and
Thank
then
you.
after that, you're welcome.
I'm pretty sure it was rehabilitation.
Probably, yeah. But I can get that for you. And then after that, I did the the RTF meeting. And pretty much it was just an update on the, they talked about how they presented that presentation, that Leo Daily update. They presented it to the scale service delivery team. And they had good questions. They said they also, the other main reason we were there was just to do the 2024 financial performance year to date and approve the 2025 budget. And pretty much the year to date budget is where it needs to be. And the 2025 budget, there will be an increase of like 7,000 compared to the 2024. And then they talked about like the reserves. How are they, where do they stand? And they talked about how they will be running out by the end of 26, the beginning of 27. So that's pretty much,
The RTF? Is that
yeah,
what- okay.
the reserves, yep. And then after that, I ran over to the Holiday gas station ribbon cutting. And that was a great turnout. That place was super busy. And great cookies, like always, and coffee. So that is it for me.
Thank
I'll
you,
get back
Councilor
to you on
Contreras. Councilor Lara?
Let's see, December 7th, also went to Holiday Fest. Always a great turnout. Seems to get better every year. Jackson Township meeting was on the 9th. December 12th, went to the Hearing Life ribbon cutting. They've been an established business for a few years now here in Shakopee, but they just joined the chamber. And then December 13th, I'm just warming up from that ribbon cutting at the Holiday because that was cold. But yes, great turnout.
It was cold. Thank you, sir. December 4th, MLC meeting. The 5th was our monthly staff meeting. December 7th, tree lighting. Mayor Choice Award was First Steps Learning Center. There was a lot of cool floats down there and displays. So December 9th, we went to the township meeting. December 12th, I was at the Savage Mayor's Janet Williams' retirement. 13th was the new Holiday Circle K on Windermere Way. Very nice store. There's two ways into it. It's kind of a circle around it. We'll see how that works out traffic-wise in the future. December 16th, yesterday, I was called to testify at the election trial. I did that. And I was there as the state mandates who's on the canvassing board at the county canvassing board, and the state requires the mayor as a part of that. So I did that, and that's my report. 9A is the city bill list. Anybody have any questions on the bill list?
No questions.
Item 12, other business. Mr. Delaney.
Just see if there's any interest in doing a workshop early next year to look at how we can get to a reasonable, stable property tax. I mean, just bounce ideas around, something.
Yep, I'm in favor. Is there anybody else that's willing to do that?
Workshops? Well,
Pardon me?
no, I'm just, yeah, that'll be fine. I mean,
Okay.
I was talking about it, I think with one of the lowest property taxes in the area, it's that race to the bottom I'm worried about, and I won't be part of that. I mean, we have needs here. We want the fire department to show up. We want the police department to show up. We want to pay our people correctly. I'm not going to be stripping jobs, because that's what it comes down to.
It doesn't come down to us, but it's looking for best practices. And right now, we just come in here every year, and it seems like we have a budget goal. And again, being the lowest in the area is not a strategy. That's just a result. I like to just see if we can bounce some ideas around. It's not saying we know everything, but I would love to hear just best practices. See if there's something we're not doing that we could be doing.
I'd like to go broader. I'd like to have county, school, all of us in our area get together and figure out how all of us can do this.
Yeah, there's always room for
because really all of them have an impact, whether it's the school district's budget or Scott County's or the guy in Tahiti with his martinis that says other, or the Met Council too for that matter. Everybody should be trying to work toward that end. So I'm all for it. It's always good to know how everybody's thinking, what they're thinking. There's no harm done, even if there's disagreements. So I'm good for that.
Practices, continuous improvement.
Anything else? Other business? Nope. Obviously, I have one. It's the Merry Christmas to everybody in Shakopee, all of our residents, all of our businesses, our staff, and Happy New Year to everybody. We will see you again next year. Yep. And I hope everybody has a great holiday season.
Christmas.
Make a motion to adjourn to January 7th, 2025 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.